January 19th and the month of February. Be looking out for these dates because stimulus checks are going out. We are finally seeing Joe Biden take action for the American people. Biden did announce his complete support for Chuck Schumer and is planning to change the Senate rules. It's also very likely that we will see President Biden take executive action on the fourth stimulus bill. Remember folks, the whole goal of this channel is done to provide you with the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check news. I always want to do my very best in providing you with this information because I know how difficult it is, and I want to see every member of my community receive the stimulus checks that everyone desperately needs. And if you guys want to help on my channel, then it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe.
Everyone should listen to the instructions from local and state officials just how dangerous this is and take it seriously. It's not just the coast, it's not just New Orleans, it's north as well. The rainfall is expected to be exceedingly high. To the people of the Gulf Coast, I want you to know that we're praying for the best and planning prepared for the worst.
In Bernie's world, let me outline your life. Before and after birth, parents get paid family leave.
I mean, when I look at this, I don't see how America could possibly like this.
You have every powerful special interest in the lobbyists.
So if you're on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, RRB, or VA beneficiary, and if you want to receive a stimulus check, even if you're not on any of these benefits, then continue watching this video, and I'm going to give you the most up-to-date, reliable stimulus check news. It's a pretty big deal that President Biden decided to formally announce that his endorsement of changing the filibuster rule. This is all in order to pass more spending bills, more stimulus bills, and more voting rights bills, all through Congress with the help from Republicans. President Biden just spoke in Georgia and he said he's tired of being quiet. He's tired of holding his opinions back and he wants to give the American people what they want. And that could only mean one thing, everybody, a stimulus check. But President Biden has promised us this before, and do you think he's actually going to do it this time? Tell me in the comments. So over the past few weeks, Biden has actually kept quiet on a very important issue in Congress, and that's the filibuster rule. So in one of the most significant speeches of his presidency so far, President Biden said he chose democracy over autocracy. Even Kamala Harris spoke about this. She does support more stimulus checks, and she also urged the American people to support this filibuster rule. So I completely agree with President Biden and Kamala Harris. In fact, it's really important that lawmakers in Congress put their differences aside and actually pass bills that will help Americans. It has definitely been frustrating, especially over the past few weeks, hearing how lawmakers like Manchin and Kamala Harris have been stalling negotiations. Joe Biden even said in his speech that Republicans had wrongly used the filibuster, turning the US Senate into a shell of what it once was. Republicans have made it very difficult for important bills to pass through Congress, and that includes voting rights bills. Democrats like Chuck Schumer really have no other option but to change the Senate rules. That's done in order to get more relief bills passed.
Income will not double in their lifetime or in one working generation, but 3 or 4 working generations. Not once in one generation or once in one lifetime, but once in a century. And that declination of growth and prosperity is an absolute threat.
So far, Biden has not endorsed a specific change to the rule, but Biden did say that he backed the change in the filibuster, which currently requires 60 votes to advance a piece of legislation. So a challenge for the voting rights bill, everybody, given lack of support from Republicans. During his speech, Biden did not mention Joe Manchin and Chris Sinema, who are the biggest defenders of the filibuster from a Democratic point of view. So if the Democrats like Manchin and Sinema hold back this bill, that means stimulus checks are not going to be sent out. But I still believe that President Biden can send it out by January 19th. So progressive lawmakers in the House have already done their part and urged Biden to enact parts of the House's $2 trillion spending bill. The leader of a group of 95 left-wing House Democrats called on President Biden to take executive action, implementing portions of the $2 trillion Build Back Better Act. The statement from Democratic Representative Pamela Jayapal came after Joe Manchin announced he cannot support the current version. So it should definitely be Congress's top priority to get Biden's Build Back Better bill passed and onto the floor and out to the American people with the stimulus checks. The one thing that President Biden can actually take executive action on is the social spending bill. He could skip all these negotiating tactics from Manchin and Republicans and just do what it takes and give us the stimulus checks that everyone's demanding for. Plus, if he does that, his approval ratings will go up. If you guys agree, then tell me in the comments.
For weeks. So the Department of Energy launched a new initiative to speed up our efforts to strengthen our energy grid with new and upgraded transmission lines and towers, keeping the power flowing for Americans with cleaner, cheaper, and more reliable energy. And that's going to happen. It's going to make a big difference. I also want to be clear. We're in this to win. And, you know, there's a lot of work underway. It's going to create a whole lot of jobs. And that brings me to the announcement I want to make today. It's just part of the infrastructure bill. My bipartisan infrastructure law includes the largest investment in our nation's bridges since the creation of the interstate highway system. Bridges to connect us, bridges to make America work. Across our country right now, there are 45,000 bridges, 45,000, that are in poor condition. We're seeing photos of some of them behind me in all 50 states. And I've had a chance to see some of them myself as I've traveled the country. I was up in New Hampshire, visited a bridge where, if it's not upgraded, weight restrictions could mean that school buses and fire trucks would have to travel an additional 10 miles out of the way to get to the other side of the river to deal with getting to school and/or putting out a fire. In New Jersey, I just visited the busiest rail bridge in the Western Hemisphere. But because it's not tall enough for ship traffic, it needs to swing open to let barges through. And sometimes when it closes, the rails need to be manually sledgehammered back into place. This slows commerce, increased cost. I went down to Louisiana and saw the I-10 bridge. I stood with the mayor and looked at that bridge. It's 20 years past its planned life. It's handling more than double the number of crossings it was designed to handle. And it's 2 lanes narrower than the interstate that feeds into it, causing backups and accidents. Today, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, is in Philadelphia at the Martin Luther King Bridge, which crosses the Schuylkill River. The bridge is no longer safe for vehicles, even though it used to carry 25,000 vehicles a day. As we prepare to celebrate Dr. King's birthday, we're also reminded that too often bridges and highways were built through the heart of historic communities, particularly black communities, cutting off families, churches, and businesses. We're going to use our infrastructure investments to reconnect communities. One thing I'm certain of, everyone out there knows what I'm talking about. People have written me about bridges they depend on. One man told me that the bridge he traveled on every day is a tragedy waiting to happen. One woman wrote that a bridge near the center of her town had to be closed. And now drivers and tourists bypass downtown, consequently devastating local businesses. And one person wrote to me to say, quote, "This is your chance to show the people in my area that they matter to you," end of quote. I hear you. I hear you. You do matter to me, and we are going to get it done. My infrastructure law includes a total of $40 billion in funding for bridge improvements. $12.5 billion of that is going to replace the most economically significant bridges in the country. These are bridges like, and I've seen them, the Brent Spence Bridge connecting Ohio and Kentucky, the I-5 Columbia